Hey, Joe the Tender here. In this video, I'm going to show you where to start in a custom shower or even a tub surround. Now, I'm going to go through and I'm going to talk you through what you're going to need to know before you start your installation, during your installation, and what you need to do after your installation. Now, first of all, let's start out with tile. Let's talk about tile. Now, I want to talk to you about the difference between ceramic and porcelain tile. The difference between the two tiles are basically strength. A porcelain is a lot stronger of a tile than a ceramic. It's not going to chip as easy. It's just going to be a lot more durable. Plus, a ceramic tile is a lot more porous than a porcelain tile, so it absorbs moisture more. Now, there's a lot of different tiles out there, and most of the ceramic tiles these days are in the smaller tiles, like 3x6s, 8x10s, 4x4s. They come in a lot of the deco tile that you'll see where they have fancy designs and stuff on them. They do come bigger size, like 12x12, 13x13, and I've seen them even bigger than that. But most of the larger tiles, 12x12 and above, are going to be a porcelain. Now, porcelain tile does also come in those smaller sizes, and you'll be able to check that with your whichever store you're going to be purchasing this from. But there's kind of the difference. So if you drop something and you have ceramic on the floor, if you drop something on the floor, there's a good chance you could get a chip or even a crack. Now, you can still get that with a porcelain, but it's going to be a lot more durable, and it's going to hold up a lot stronger for you and be a lot more durable for you in the long run than a ceramic tile would be. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about is tile sizes. Now, it's really important that you understand this because a lot of tiles nowadays are a larger size. 12x24, 18x18, 24x24. There's a lot of tile plank out there which comes in all sorts of sizes. 6x18, 6x36, 8x48, and I've even seen them longer than that. They come in all sorts of different sizes, and you just need to be aware that a lot of these longer tiles nowadays will have a little bit of a bow in them. And so it makes it a little more difficult for you to install, which is why nowadays what's really became popular is tile leveling spacers. Some kind of a tile leveling system. There's a ton of them out there on the market. I suggest that you use them because when you do use these, you can get rid of the lippage, because if you have that bow and you're trying to install a tile next to it, what happens is those tiles aren't going to line up nicely. They're going to be unlevel with each other, and it's really hard to just add more thin set or take away thin set. It's just a pain in the butt. So what you do with these tile leveling spacers is you force that tile together so it's flat. So it's nice and flat, you have no lippage, and it looks nice. It also kind of forces them to stay evenly in while you're installing as far as the grout joints lining up. It depends on the system that you get now. Now I'm going to show you here real quick an example of a tile leveling system that I like to use. It's my favorite. It's pretty convenient. It has a lot of benefits to it. So here, let me show you what I'm talking about. Now, these are how this works. Once I get all this thin setted in, I put these caps in, I screw them in tight, and then I get it until I have no lippage with the other tile. And that's what this is for. It's to take away lippage. But it also really comes in handy with the installation on stuff like this. And the thing that I really like about these is that you can unscrew them and take your tile back out, where a lot of the systems you have a strap that you squeeze and then you have to pretty much start all over with it if you need to take the tile out. Okay, so let's talk thin set now. Now, there's a lot of different stuff out there. If you go to the store or to one of the home improvement stores, you're going to see there's going to be stuff there that's going to say best for porcelain, best for glass, unmodified, modified, pre-modified. There's all sorts of different terms out there, dry set, and so I want to kind of clear this up for you. And let's talk about first what an unmodified thin set is versus a modified. Now, an unmodified thin set is not what you're going to want to use unless you're using a product like a Ditra or a Curdy membrane or something similar to that. Now, a lot of the home improvement stores are starting to sell different brands of these types of products, and this is where you have an uncoupling membrane is what they call it, that you can use for in place of cement board. And then the Kerdi membrane is a product, and other similar products like that are stuff that you would use for waterproofing your walls. It's a fabric that you would put on. So those are the types of situations when you'd use an unmodified. Now, the reason why is because an unmodified thin set dries out quick if it comes in contact with a porous surface. Now, the stuff that I just talked about, those uncoupling membranes, are not a porous surface, and so it takes longer for that thin set to dry. And to be honest, over time, an unmodified thin set is stronger than a modified, but if it is used over a porous surface, it dries out too quick, and then you're going to have problems in the future where you didn't get a good bond with the tile because those chemicals just dried out way too quick. And so with with a modified, it has a latex product inside of it, and that helps with curing when you're installing over a porous surface like cement board, concrete, over a plywood or a OSB when you're putting your thin set down to secure your cement board. So it allows it to not dry out so quick because it's a porous surface, and that porous surface sucks the water out, and it makes it dry too quick if you don't have that latex additive in there, which helps it dry slower. So that's just a quick rundown of the two. Now let's talk about the different thin sets that you can buy. Now I'm going to show you thin sets that you can get from Home Depot, Menards, and Lowe's. Okay, so this is an uncoupling membrane thin set. Now this is what you would use over Ditra or Kerdi membrane or something similar to that. It's an unmodified thin set, and this is a full set plus. This is also an unmodified thin set that Tech makes. It's sold at Menards and at Lowe's. It says dry set on the bottom corner. Now if you find a thin set that says dry set, that means it's an unmodified thin set. Now this is Tech Full Flex. This is a medium bed modified thin set. It's really a good thin set. I like to use it, and I use it most. You can use it with large and small tile, and it's just overall a decent product. Now this is VersaBond. This is sold at Home Depot. It's also a multi-purpose thin set for any size tile. It's a modified thin set. It's a pretty good thin set. Now this is a pre-mixed thin set. It comes in a bucket. It's a type of a glue. It says that it's good to use wherever in any situation, but don't use it. Don't use a pre-mixed thin set. Buy the thin set that comes in a bag. You mix it with water. I wouldn't even use this on a backsplash, but if you are going to use this type of thin set, that is where you would use it, on a backsplash. Now what's the difference between a white and a gray thin set? The difference is that if you're using a natural stone that has a light color to it, you want to use a white thin set so that gray does not bleed through and show that you're using it. Also, I like to use white thin set if I'm doing a glass tile. I just like to not use a gray in those situations. Now if I'm using glass inside of a shower that I'm doing a band of mosaics, I'll just use the gray, and it's fine in that situation. But typically on a backsplash, or if I'm doing a solid glass, not just little tiny mosaics, I'll use a white thin set. And the other thing with gray that I really like to use, why I like to use gray, is because it's not as messy on your clothes. A gray, you can get spots of white all over you while you're doing this, and it's just, you look like you're a disaster, where gray kind of blends in. So it's just maybe an installer thing, I don't know, but I typically use gray on just about everything that I do. Now you're going to want to get your walls flat. It's going to help you with your installation. If you don't have flat walls, you're really going to struggle throughout the entire installation on getting your tile to line up, the grout joints. Also, avoiding that lippage. Even with using tile leveling spacers, you still want to have flat walls, because if you don't get a proper bond with your tile and that cement board with the thin set, you're going to have issues in the future of cracked tile, of cracked grout joints. It's just going to be a pain in your butt. Plus you want it to be nice and flat so that it looks nice. And so some of the methods that I use here is I take a straight edge of some sort. You can use a level, and you can see that I try to find different spots in the studs to make sure they line up with each other. Now this is an important step that you'd want to take before you even start installing your cement board. And so what you do is how I'm showing you here, and then you would just add either shims, or another easy way of doing it is how I'm going to show you right here is I like to use sister studs. And so if there's room there, just put a sister stud in. It's a lot easier than trying to shim the wall up. It's super simple to just stick a stud in next to it and screw it in to get it flat with the other studs on that wall. So just a quick little tidbit there. Now, if you don't get those walls completely flat because you couldn't get to some of those studs to make it right, you can always do it over the cement board. And I have some videos that show you how to do this, where you can easily fill spots that are low on the walls to be able to get it nice and flat for that installation. So you can see kind of here what I'm doing. This is just a quick example. Obviously, I have a detailed video that shows how to do this and make this right. Now again, we're still at the stage before we even install cement board. These are the things that you need to think about. Now, we got to think about the shelves. Are you going to use a built-in shelf? Are you going to use corner shelves that mount on the outside of the wall? Are you going to install a bench? And what kind of bench are you going to use? Are you going to use a preformed one, or are you going to build it on your own? There's things that you need to think about before you even do the cement board. Now, there's a ton of options out there for you with this. Now, I use a few different types of shelvings. I like to use a corner shelf that I build out of with tile. Now you can see an example of that here. I like to use built-in shelves that are prefabbed, meaning I just need to cut the hole, figure out where it's going to go, and then I just put that prefab shelf in. And the benefit to that is it's 100% waterproof. It's once you get it in there, you put it in there level, it's going to be perfectly level, it's going to be perfectly square. There's no build out from trying to fill in where your cement board is with thin set to get the joints filled and then waterproof it. It's just it's a lot easier just to do a preformed, and I recommend that you do that. There's many options out there. I prefer to use the Curdy, the one that's made by Schluter. They have lots of different options. Now, they also have benches that you can buy, a lot of preformed stuff. You can build your own. I like floating benches. I use those a lot, but some people like to use a bench that goes up from the floor up. So you have options with that with the preformed ones. You can also see here that this shelf right here, this floating shelf here is what I call it. You can put a shelf like this anywhere in your shower. And what I did here is I made this out of Curdy board, and then I tiled over it. Now, I have videos inside Tile University that will show you how to do these types of shelves and benches, so be sure to go check that out if you're curious on how you would add something like this to your installation. Okay, so there's one more step that you want to do if you're going to do a built-in or when you're planning your shelves. You want to lay out your tile on the floor or on something and look at your layout. Now, if you're going to use your whatever spacers you're going to use, you want to get those involved here so that you get your layout perfect. Now, I'm not saying that you need to have your layout perfect at this stage, but what you're looking for is to get a good idea of where your tile is going to fall, so you can adjust your built-in shelf if you're going to use it and your bench to that layout. Because what you want to avoid is you don't want to come up with the tile to the right before you get to that built-in shelf, and then it ends and you have to put a little skinny piece in there, or you have a big old ugly looking grout joint. And also, where the shelf would end, you want to think about this. But I've seen this on a lot of people's jobs. I've even seen professional installers run into this where they screwed it up and then they just left it, and it's just an eyesore. This is going to be a masterpiece. You want it to be right. So just take these steps and you'll be able to have a nice looking shower. Now, I also have videos that will talk you through all of this on Inside Tile University, so be sure to check those out if you need some help. Okay, so we're finally to the cement board. Now, we have all the preparation done. Before all of that, now we're at the cement board part. Now, what kind of cement board would you use? Well, there's a lot of options out there, as you know. There's Durarock, there's Permabase, HardieBacker, Fiber Rock, there's Wonderboard, and then there's also stuff like Curdy board, which isn't a cement board. It's a foam type board that you would install. And so it's kind of hard to figure out which one's the best, which one should you use. Now, I'll just tell you what I like to use. I'm not saying that any of them are bad. I just will tell you that I like to use Durarock when I'm using a cement board. It's easy to work with. It's a good quality product. I just really like using that as far as a cement board. And I really also like to use Kerdi board. Now Kerdi board's a great product too. It's 100% waterproof. You don't have to do anything with the main part of the Kerdi board. It's already waterproof, but you do need to waterproof the screw holes and the seams. And so I do really like to use both of those. It's really your choice on what you want to use. I will tell you though, Hardy Backer is a little more difficult to install. It's hard to get those screws sunk in. It's hard to cut unless you have a nipper that cuts through it. There's special things that you can do to cut this stuff. But if you don't work with it every day, I just feel like it's a more difficult product to work with. Now, let's talk waterproofing. So if you're going to use cement board inside your shower or anything, you're going to have to make sure it's 100% waterproofed. And there's a lot of products out on the market for that also. Now, when I'm using Durarock, I like to use Hydroban. Hydroban is a membrane. It's something that you paint on, and that is going to waterproof your walls 100%. And I also use this on my shower pan. Now, in my videos, I don't teach how to use a pan liner that goes underneath the pan. I waterproof the pan on the top, and I waterproof the walls on the top. So that is the type of installation that we're talking about. Now, the benefit with Hydroban is that anything that's a gap of an 1/8 inch or smaller can just be covered with the Hydroban, and you don't even need to use a tape or a fabric. Now, I like to use a cement board tape still while I'm painting my corners, and I'll reinforce those with some cement board tape. And if I have a gap that's larger than an 1/8 inch, I just fill it with inset, let it dry, and then you can move on with painting your membrane on. Now with Hydro Barrier, Red Guard, other products like that, you need to use a fabric, and this fabric can be bought, and you can also buy corners and inside outside corners that you can use with these types of membranes. And the only thing that I will tell you is that if you're using thinner tile and even bigger tile, smaller tile tends to be more of a problem when you have build out with that fabric. So if you have a larger tile, it's not as much of an issue, but it still is an issue. That's one of the reasons why I really like Hydroban. Plus, I just think it's a superior product. It's well worth the money. And what I mean by build out is when you put that extra layer of fabric on there, that's going to build it out a little bit. So it makes it a little more difficult, or adds another thing in your installation that you need to work around. Now there's also Kerdi membrane. You can use this. Now they say you can use this over sheetrock, and I have done it. I've done it in a few showers where I worked for some shops that's how they had their builders do it, so that you didn't have to have meetings about where tile ends, and it just made it more convenient for the builders. Now Kerdi membrane is a good product. I actually do use it on my shower pans, but again, we're talking about situations where you have to put a band of Kerdi band is what it's called around wherever your joints are, your screw holes, and it causes build out. But it is a good product. Now I don't recommend putting sheetrock in your shower, even though they say that you can do that. The reason why is if you ever have a leak behind, the sheetrock is still going to get wrecked, and all the tile is going to have to be replaced anyway. And you can't control if a water pipe is going to break behind your shower. And if it was a cement board, it's going to outlast that water break. It's just going to take a while for it to dry out. But if you have sheetrock behind there, it's done. You're never gonna save it. You're gonna have to rip it out and replace it. Okay, so now we're on to the shower pan. Now once again, your layout still comes into play here, which is why I recommend doing your layout first, trying to figure it out. Because if you need to build that shower pan a little thicker so you can avoid having a small piece on the top or on the bottom of your wall, you have control of how thick you can make your shower pan. Now you don't want to make an 8-inch shower pan, but typically I start out at about 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches from where I start at the drain, and then build up. And you want to add 1/4 inch of pitch for every foot. So you can kind of come up with your math there on how thick you want to make your shower pan. And you can start it out thicker. You could start it out at 2 inches if you want, and then work your way up. So just keep that kind of stuff in mind. Okay, so there's different types of shower pans that you can use. Obviously, there's the fiberglass ones, which you don't tile, and then they have preformed shower pans that you can buy and try to use that in your situation, and then you can tile over those. They also have preformed curbs that you can use. Now, a lot of times I like to use a preformed curb because they're 100% waterproof, they're easy to install, and it's just really simple. So I like to use those preformed curbs. Now, you can buy a preformed curb that Schluter makes. There's other companies that make them. There's the Curdy board style. There's the it's a heavy duty foam is what the Curdy board is, and then the Curdy another curb, which is a Curdy board. It's already pre-made into the curb out of the Curdy board for you, and then they also have different styrofoam type curbs that you can buy, all of which are good. There's not a bad choice there. You can also make your own curb, and you can do this by using the concrete mix, the cement mix, the mortar bed mix that you're going to be using, and you would just form that with 2x4s. Or you can use 2x4s and just build the curb with the 2x4s, cement board around it, and then you're going to waterproof it with the waterproofing membrane that we talked about earlier. And so the 2x4 is not going to get wet anyway. And you could paint the floor first with the membrane, put your 2x4 down. And you can also go with pre-treated 2x4s, especially if you're going to be doing it on concrete. Otherwise, make sure you paint that floor first. And the method that I'm talking about is obviously we don't use a pan liner. I talked about this earlier in the video. My pan liner is the paintable membrane that we put over the top of the pan and the walls. So we stop the water at the top. Now, I like this way because the water never goes inside the pan. It stops at the top of the pan and flows to the drain. So any water that gets through the grout joints, through the thin set, stops at the top of the pan, flows to the drain. It's a very sanitary way to go. I really like it. Now, if you have a pan liner that they used back in the day, and they still do use, but imagine that your water's coming from your shower head, it drips down onto your tile, through the grout joint, through the thin set, now it goes through that shower pan until it hits that pan liner. Then it flows to the drain. That's a lot to go through, and I believe it's an unsanitary way of doing it. I believe that there's a lot of mold and mildew that's caused because of that method, and it's an old school way. You don't need to do it that way anymore. There's new technology, better technology out there. So that's the way I like to do it. Okay, so now the next step would be you want to put your drain in. Now, what kind of drain are you going to get? Now, this is the drain that I suggest that you get. It's a Schluter drain. It's a really good drain, easy to work with. You can adjust it up and down by just pushing it. So while you're installing your tile, it makes it really simple to use. And I have videos that show how to do all of this stuff in Tile University if you would like to go and join there and become a member to have access to all these videos to help you through your project. So this can be attached straight to the PVC pipe that you have in the floor, and also it can be attached to your existing drain that used to have a pan liner attached to it. So that's also another great benefit to it. So this is something that you want to install, and then after that you're going to go ahead and you're going to put your tar paper down if you're on a wood subfloor. Then you're going to put down a wire mesh. You're going to secure that really well, and then you're going to get your sand mix and you're going to start putting that in your pan. Now, there is a lot of different ways to do this to get your slope proper, and I have detailed videos that will walk you through your entire process of building your shower pan. Some really good quick tips, easy to use tips that are really going to help you make this a simple process. Now, a lot of people get worried or afraid to do a shower pan. It's really not that difficult. Plus, you have so much working time to be able to get it right. It's trust me, you can do it. Now, I get a lot of questions on where do you get the mud bed mix. Now, first of all, I'm just going to tell you a lot of the home improvement stores don't sell it. Why, I don't know. They expect you to go and get the couple different products and figure out your own mix and go ahead and do it. Now, I personally don't do it that way. I buy bags that are already ready to go. You don't have to add anything other than water. Now, you can get access to these too. You can go ahead and go get some from a flooring store. If you have a flooring store in your area, just call them up and say, hey, I'm going to build a shower pan. I need to get some mud bed mix. I call it sand mix, but they might call it something different wherever you live. And they're going to point you in the direction that you need to go. Now, next, what you need to think about is what kind of trim pieces are you going to use with your tile? What I mean is, are you going to use a bullnose tile? And does your tile even come with a bullnose tile? Now, there's a lot of trim pieces that you can choose from out there, deco pieces, stuff like that, but where you want to end, where the wall, or where the tile ends on the wall, you want to have a nice edge there of some sort, a nice clean edge. And some of the other options that you have here are really, there's quite a few. Now, Schluter makes trim pieces that are made out of aluminum. They have all sorts of different styles that you can choose from, and a variety of a lot of colors, and it just continues to keep growing every day. There's different profiles they have, where there's square edge and there's a rounded edge, and there's kind of a square and rounded edge, there's a flat edge. There's an enormous supply of these types of trims out there that you can go and search for. Now, I know that some of the big box stores carry different brands too, so you should go check that out and just really think about, is that what you want to use? I really personally don't like to use bullnose. I think that well, you can see in some of these videos here that you can make it look nice on the end by kind of still having a bullnose look by turning the tile, cutting it, and trying to break it up a little bit, come up with some nice little designs. And the thing that's really nice is when you can get rid of bullnose and not have to have a couple of pieces that you need to deal with or on your end walls or on your curb, because a lot of times what happens is you have to cut these bullnoses down to even get them to work, and then because they're never perfect, you either need to cut them or you have two pieces and a small piece in the middle. It's really nice that now bullnose doesn't have to be the only option. And also in some of the built-in shampoo shelves, when you stick that bullnose on the side there, it's not going to fit in there in one piece. More than likely you're going to have to stick a small piece in there. So it's really nice to just have these options. So be sure to go check out that. You can find all sorts of stuff like that online to be able to go and look to see what it looks like. Now let's talk grout. What kind of grout would you need? Now, do you want to use an epoxy? They have a lot of different types of epoxy grouts that you can use, and basically what an epoxy grout is it's something that never needs sealing. And so once that dries, it hardens very hard, and it's stain proof. You're never going to really have any issues with it. The problem is it is a little more difficult to work with some of those epoxies. So be careful on what you're hoping for or what you're wishing for if you decide to go with something like that. Now, Spectralock makes a really good grout that once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad to use. But also these epoxy grouts are a little more expensive. Now, what's the difference between a sanded and an unsanded grout? Well, a sanded grout is what you're going to use on an 1/8 inch grout joint and above. And unsanded is what you're going to use on less than 1/8 of an inch. Also, if you have a backsplash, if you were doing a backsplash, you would use an unsanded. If you were using like a glass tile and you had a smaller grout joint. Now, if you're going with mosaics that have a little bit of glass in it, don't worry about your glass getting scratched with the sanded grout. It's going to be just fine. You're going to be fine to use a sanded grout there. Now, there is a lot of different things that you can buy as far as with these grouts on additives and stuff to take away or to add sealers, but to be honest with you, if you just use this sealer that I'm showing you right now, it's real easy to use. It's not too expensive. You can just seal a couple times a year with it if you need to. I mean, they say that it lasts for a while, but just to be safe, maybe seal it for sure once a year. Put a couple of coats on and you should be good to go. It seems to be a good product, and it's real easy to use. You just spray it on right after you're done grouting. It doesn't leave a haze on the tile, so just go ahead, go to town with it. And you don't need to worry if you get it on the tile, because you will when you're using this kind of a sealer spraying it. Now, there's so much more that we could cover, and we only have so much time here. I don't want to get this video too long, but I do want to talk to you a little bit more about some tools. What are some of the tools that you might need? Now, typically, there's 3 different tools that you're for sure going to need. Or that you're going to need to choose from is what I mean. Well, an angle grinder with a diamond blade is something that you're definitely going to want to have. I use this for a lot of the cutting. You're also, if you had to take a choice between a tile cutter and a tile saw, the tile saw is really the way that you should go. And the reason why is because when you need to make some really good cuts and not have chips, and you need them to turn out perfect, especially around these shelves that I've been showing you, and then where you end your tile, you want to have nice cuts there. So the tile saw would be the way that I would suggest that you go, and then have a grinder with a masonry or a diamond wheel. And you should be able to get by with that. Now, there's obviously a lot more tools that you need, but I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a tidbit about those types of things. Okay, there's so much more I could share with you, but the video I know is starting to get a little long, but I just want to let you know about a place where you can go and get more of my videos. Now, I've got videos that will help you from the very first step all the way to the last, and it's in my members area on my website, and it's called Tile University. I'll have a link below that you can click on so you can go check it out. Now, you can go through these videos, and each step that you're going through inside the process of your installation, go watch the video and then come back and do your work on your tile installation until you need the next video for the next step. Then you can go and watch that. It works out pretty slick that way. Plus, I'll be there to help and guide you all the way through your project with whatever you need. Okay. I'm Joe Latender. I want to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you inside Tile University. Have a great day.